Start with the first one. So how did the Indiana State Police become involved with the Abbey and Libby case, and were they classified as missing persons at the time?
We got involved the day after the girls went missing, and we've been involved ever since, in large part because of the amount of resources that the ISP has that most local agencies don't. And of course, I committed any resource that we have within the ISP until this case comes to conclusion.
Make sure I can hear you. Okay, and what is the standard procedure for your department when you get a call about a missing person, specifically a missing child?
All hands on deck. We're gonna respond, and there's never a one size fits all to any kind of a call like that. They're always different. It could be age, it could be mental stability, it could be a domestic situation. We never take them lightly, I guess is what I'm saying to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely not. So there are 4, this is just kind of to clarify, there are 4 various jurisdictions involved, is that correct? They have the ISP, Delphi, Carroll County, these are the same, and then the FBI?
Yes. And then, but remember, we've also reached out to a lot of other agencies in Indiana where we have tips. Mm-hmm. So just as from the state police perspective, we have had detectives here from every one of our posts around Indiana. We have 14 of them. So over about 150 people within the ISP have touched this in some way or another. So there are a lot of other agencies too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those are the 4 primary ones though.
Yeah, there's a lot. I work at Kohl's. So I met a police officer that works in Carmel who said he did a little bit on it, but he just heard about it through other people that he worked with. Yeah. And so we sat at the cash register and talked about it for about half an hour.
Oh, good. So who was it? Do you remember?
His name was Brett in Carmel. He didn't tell me about it.
Okay.
But his name is Brett, definitely.
Okay.
So what was each department's role in the case, and how did you all work together?
Gosh, each department's role was to work at their maximum capacity, whatever that might be. Both Delphi City and Carroll County worked to their max capacity. They gave all the resources that they had, both in things and people. The same thing that we did as a state police agency. And then the FBI did the exact same. And we ended up leaning into the FBI in large part because we realized we weren't going to probably be able to manage this much data, especially the number of tips that were coming in. So that we recognized that was a deficit for us. But the FBI had it and they brought it in. So anything that we had, we were bringing it to Carroll County.
I think it was really cool that, I think that day, right after I heard that the girls were missing, or actually that they were gone, the FBI was there hours later. Right. I think that I was actually questioned by an FBI agent the first day, maybe.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Probably so.
How was it decided which department will ultimately take charge of the investigation?
That is a bit of a tough question right now, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in a good way. We will continue to have the most resources attached to it, and I know that when the arrest is made, and I know that there will be, we'll do that together.
I think it's coming really soon, right?
I do too.
Yeah.
I do any day.
Yeah, I pray every day.
So
I'll sit in bed and Doug's gonna call me today. They're gonna call me.
Oh, you have no idea how much I'd love to be able to do that for you.
Oh yeah, I sit there and wait. I watch my phone. Do you know how many man hours and how much money has been spent on this case overall between all the agencies, or yours specifically?
Oh, I don't. I would have no idea. Well, millions of dollars.
That's a lot.
In time and anything that we needed. I remember specifically calling the governor that day because we didn't have the means by which we could purchase food that quick. And I'll never forget he committed to me anything. He meant it.
Yeah, he did. He keeps in contact with us too sometimes. just with like the ball field and that kind of thing. And he's like, we're going to make sure this gets solved.
Yeah, and he will too.
Yeah.
He will. He's given us everything we've needed.
Yeah. And I think with food too, the community kind of helped in Delphi.
Oh my gosh. That's a whole nother issue.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable meals. I'll always remember this community for the outpouring of support for your family. But then that transition to us and how they welcomed us. Mm-hmm. Some of the best pies and casseroles ever. So yeah, we ate really well.
Yeah. Our community is really great. We open our arms to anyone, especially when somebody in our community needs help. And I think we kind of learned that after.
For sure.
So that
you should be very proud of that. I hope everybody is.
I know I am.
Good.
I don't talk to very many people there anymore since I live away, but definitely, I definitely think we help each other a lot more now. Which department handled the initial response on February 13th when the girls were first reported missing?
Carroll County and Delphi City.
How quickly did police become part of the official search for the girls?
I think relatively quickly.
I think so too.
Yeah, remember, it's a very small rural community, so the word travels fast. Mm-hmm. And it was just, again, the outpouring of support. We've seen sometimes can lose sight of that initially, but it was unbelievable.
As investigators walking around in the wooded trail type of area, like the area that was searched for the girls, what are some of the challenges that the searchers might have encountered? And what kinds of things were we looking for? Well,
certainly access was tough because it's very rural. And there's a lot of rolling hills out there, and there's a lot of woods. So that's always a challenge. The one thing that was not an issue at the time was foliage on the trees. So visually, there was more available than there would have been in the summertime before the leaves fell off. But that was a very challenging area, no doubt about that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know I was terrified to cross the bridge, but knowing now what I know, I didn't even have to cross the bridge.
That's right. I did it twice, and I don't want to do it again. And twice on the same trip, one way and back. Mm-hmm. Now I want to do it again.
Yeah, Libby always forced me, and I would have to crawl like over like these giant coals. I'm like, how did they even cross it? Like I would be terrified.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, one of the many things I admire my sister for. I could never have done that.
Right, me either.
Okay. And what kinds of things were we looking for while we were out there?
Anything unusual. Anything unusual at the time.
I have one big issue. When I was out there, I was looking for like my sister. So then when they're like questioning me, they're like, "Did you see anybody around you that you were like suspicious about?" I'm like, "No, I was looking for my sister, like on the ground somewhere."
Right.
So like now when I think back and they're like, "Who was with you at the time?" I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah, and that's something. Yeah, and that's a good answer.
Yeah, I have no idea. If something hits me and I'm like, oh, that guy that I saw, I'm like, I'll say something. I'll tell you guys. But I'm like, right now.
And then, that could happen eventually.
Yeah.
That could happen.
Yeah, and I think I've learned that through my forensic psychology classes. Mm-hmm. They're like, someday you might just click and be like, oh, this guy was walking with me that day.
Right.
But right now.
Dang, he looks familiar.
Yeah.
And then remember, oh, that's where I saw him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and just right now it's just not there yet.
Yeah.
So we're getting there. I do write a lot so that I'll try to remember something.
Good for you. Yeah.
I still haven't. So did the police give specific instructions to searchers on what to look for and what to do if they found anything?
I have no idea. I wasn't there then. I have no idea. I hope so.
Honestly, I don't remember being told anything. I think the fire department told us to get a firefighter if we saw something and they needed to contact police, but I think that's all that I was told. And we all kind of met up in one place, and that's all that I remember. And then we all kind of separated and went in a million directions. Do you remember how many total searchers were involved on either day, the 13th or 14th? And how do you try to ensure that the search for potential evidence isn't lost or disturbed?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And there were lots. And that's always a concern because we have to, from the law enforcement perspective, we try and look at these as a very methodical grid search. But you have to consider the worst case scenario too, so that you don't do what you just said. And that's, you might trample on evidence, you might miss something, you might think something's not important than it is. We don't know who's out there, who's where, who's done what, who saw, who picked up, all those things. So that's a challenge. Oh, and it was not just a challenge here, but it was a challenge everywhere. Anywhere that these kinds of things happen, especially in a rural area like that. So that it did create many challenges for us.
I think when I got there on the 13th, when my family first got there, we're like, oh no, something's wrong. They aren't answering the phone. Me and my uncle actually crossed the bridge and we were yelling for them down there. And I remember getting to the end of the bridge and looking to the left and seeing like somebody had fallen down the hill over there. And I didn't think anything of it. Like everybody goes down the hill. But now, like after taking my forensic classes, I'm like, I should have taken a picture of it. I should have
Did you see the disrupted ground? Is that why you thought somebody slipped down there? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm like, there could have been like a footprint or something that would have been helpful now, but I wasn't thinking the worst.
No, that's okay.
So sometimes that gets me like, maybe there was something there.
Somebody knows something, Kelsi. I mean, somebody's gonna wake up one day and say, I can't live with this anymore.
Yeah.
And that might be tomorrow.
Absolutely, it's coming. Were helicopters or search dogs brought in to the search? Why or why not?
Yes. Our helicopter was brought in the next day for an aerial view, but even though there was no foliage on the trees, the view from up there was very, very difficult still. And at that time, we didn't have the technology on the helicopters that we have today. But it's again, that rural area is always a challenge, even from the air.
And were there dogs used?
I don't recall if dogs were used or not.
I think that they were brought in like they were going to come in, but then they found the girls.
That's as I remember that.
That's how I remember it.
Me too.
When the girls' bodies were found, did the case immediately switch from missing person to double murder case, or was it a suspicious death type of investigation?
No, any one of those will always be the worst case scenario, and then we work it backwards. So that was a double homicide.
How quickly was the scene secured and an investigation of two deaths started?
Almost instantaneously, as I understand it. I got up there about 2 hours or so after the girls were found, and at that time it was completely sealed.
I don't remember where I was at that point. I was like all over the place. I went to my grandpa's house, my other grandpa, and then after that I'm like total blur until the funeral. And then after the funeral I can talk about whatever. But before then it's like everything's a little fuzzy stuff.
Yeah.
Can you confirm that the girls were laying side by side?
I can't talk about that.
Was a coroner or medical examiner brought to the scene? If so, who was that person?
They were brought to the scene. I don't remember the names, but they were there.
Were they our Carroll County?
It would have been.
Yeah, I know who they are. I'll tell them. Can you verify that both of the girls' times of death are around the same time?
No. I can't answer that.
I gotcha. How does a murder investigation start out for investigators?
Well, as I said just a few minutes ago, they start out as the worst case scenario and work them backwards. Once the investigation begins, things slow down. But I think most people would recognize and remember the first 48 hours. There's all kinds of TV shows and movies and things like that about that first 48 hours, and it's real. The first 48 hours is very important, but not just to make an arrest, but to gather the physical evidence that's there. Because once it's gone forever. So it was very slow and very, very methodical. And again, this one created some significant challenges because of location.
And that's. I'm glad you mentioned like the first 48 hours of the show. When I'm in my forensic class right now, and my professor, the first day he told us that after we start taking these classes, we're not going to like watching them anymore. Because now I watch them and I'm like, why are they doing it like that? They're doing all this stuff wrong. And so it's just amazing to think that like they can solve that in like 55 minutes, and I'm sitting here like 3 years later. Like, that's how it really works.
Well, the problem with that is people think that in 43 minutes of a 1 hour TV show that things can be solved all because of science. That's just simply not the case. Sometimes it is, But we have this unreasonable expectation that science is the be-all, end-all to everything, and it's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a lot more to it.
Yes.
So police scanner audio during the search revealed that the girls' undergarments or clothes were found during the search. Can you comment on that, or whether or not they were found related to the murders?
I can't.
Yep. All right.
Remember, there's things that we know that only the murderer knows.
Yep.
So I can't talk about anything having to do with evidence.
Absolutely. And I know that, but I told them I'm going to put them in here. Anyway. Police didn't announce to the public right away that the girls were murdered, but how soon did investigators determine that the girls were murdered?
I'll just say very early.
Yeah, right away, I would assume. Police choose not to release the cause of death. Can you say why that was?
Only the murderer would know.
Can you give us any details of where Libby's phone was found, and how quickly did you realize the phone itself might include evidence for the case?
I can't talk about that.
I'll skip that one. In past cases, police have reached out to companies like NASA and Disney. Did you enlist any experts in source of the video?
We enlisted a lot of experts, and that's how I'll answer that question.
At some point, investigators realized that there is a man captured on Libby's phone, and that suspect may be a potential witness or suspect. How long did it take for you all to figure out that he was likely a suspect and not a witness?
That has to do with an investigatory process, so I think I'll leave that question alone.
As an investigator, how encouraged were you that the video that it was a video and audio that you had found of a potential suspect?
Important enough that one day I'm going to tell her thank you.
Me too. I was pretty proud of her.
Very proud.
So I saw that, and so at Delphi, the students and like the teachers weren't allowed to say anything about it because they didn't know how it would affect the kids there. So I was in a Spanish class, and I had just went back when that was released, and my Spanish teacher looked at me that day, and she knew that there was a press release, and she's like, "Kels, why aren't you there?" And I said, "Well, my grandparents are there, so that's okay." And I didn't want to be part of it at the time. I just needed to get away, and I was going to watch it on my phone because I could sit in the back and just be quiet. And she says, "Well, do you want us to play it in the class?" And I'm like, "You're not supposed to do that." But she shut the door and she locked it so nobody could come in, and she played it. And so like our whole class was sitting there together watching it happen. I remember everybody just going completely silent and just looking around at each other. And that was a really...
Was that when we were at the church? The press conference at the church?
I think that you were at the church.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was very...
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, me too. And that's kind of how I remember. I was with my people that were really close with me, and we were all sitting there together, and it was just... Even the
That's
people...
kind of a neat moment for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, like even the people that didn't know her were sitting there in tears because it touched them so much. So that was just a really amazing place to be in that moment.
Oh, that's terrific. Neat story.
Yeah. No. I'm skipping the ones about the video because you're not going to talk about them.
I won't.
Were you shocked or surprised after releasing the still photo and audio of the suspect and it went viral that he wasn't quickly identified?
I was. I was, and even a little bit disappointed, probably. And the reason I say that is I may be jumping ahead on your questions, but anybody that closes their eyes and thinks of a family member, or a friend, or a coworker, or a neighbor, whoever that might be, and you see them from the neck down, you know who they are. You know who that is. So somebody knows who this person is. So that's a negative to this, but it's also a positive to this to me now. I didn't realize that at the time, but I know that somebody knows who this person is.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And how shocked or surprised are you that it still hasn't been identified after 3 years?
Well, I can't imagine what you and your family have felt and experienced and endured over this period of time. But I carry a piece of the bridge in my car, and I can't wait to get rid of it. One day I will.
Yes, I'm waiting for that day for you guys too. I know you guys put a lot of emotion into it. Like, even when people don't see it, they're like, "Oh, these cops are really bad people." I'm like, no, they're not. I don't know where some of these people get their information about police officers. But
it has taken its toll, and this has become the focal point of individual lives to be able to bring this person forward, mm-hmm. and to allow your family to heal. The byproduct of the consequence of that is the consequence on other people, and then not just us, but community members. People that don't even know your family, mm-hmm. but that now know the Delphi community. And remember, this is on the heels of the floor fire. Mm-hmm. So two tragic events that occurred in one county, months apart, that remain unsolved.
Definitely.
It weighs heavy.
Definitely. And I think we just put ourselves out there and talk more, but I definitely advocate for them too. I hope that both of our cases get solved very soon.
Yes, me too.
Oh, no. Is there any additional evidence that you would release in the future if it were needed to help solve the case?
Maybe.
How closely did you look at Abbey and Libby's social media to see if they could hold any clues?
We know a lot.
How many tips did police receive early on, and how did you sort through what was potentially helpful and what wasn't?
Well, we had so many we couldn't manage them early on, and we're up to around 46,000 now. That's why we brought in the system the FBI offered. Mm-hmm. That helped us not only collect that, because remember, we can't, even though we collect it, we have to know what the action was, because I think we're just one tip away. Mm-hmm. So we have to make darn good and sure that we follow up on those tips that are appropriate, then we properly catalog them, because once the arrest is made, the investigation starts all over again.
Yep.
So that's when the real work's going to begin again. So it's really important that we track data.
Yeah, and it's important to keep some of that stuff to yourself, right? So that you have that when we go to trial.
We know a lot.
Yep. Let's do this question. I don't like it. Early on, police mentioned that there was some DNA evidence found and that it was going to be fast-tracked through the lab, but then noting else that there was never anything found. Can you state why no follow-up was given on that?
I can't talk about the evidence associated with this.
Can you say whether genetic genealogy using familial DNA profiles is possible tools to be utilized in the future?
Again, it's associated with DNA evidence.
Don't want to talk about that. To date, how many persons of interest and suspects have police looked at, and what makes a person a suspect as opposed to a person of interest?
Well, everybody's a person of interest in almost anything that we do. And I can't speak specifically to this with the number of people that there are, but again, we work these from the worst case scenario and then backwards. So that number would be a lot, but that would be up to the detectives, not me.
As far as the suspect in this case, are there any things that you are confident in as far as age, height, weight, etc.?
This is my own personal opinion. I believe that the person on the bridge that we have the photograph of is the murderer. Mm-hmm. I believe that we have his voice, and I believe that we have a video of him walking. And that's why I know somebody knows who he is.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I think like if I looked at that and it was my grandpa, I would be able to tell you that's my grandpa right there.
Absolutely.
And that's because I see him all the time. So
right.
When people are like, why can't they release more of the video? I'm like, well, if that was my best friend, I would know who he is from that. So I don't think that they need to release more. So they ask me that a lot. They're like, is there more that they can release? I'm like, well, I don't know if there's more because they wouldn't tell me, but if there was, I would tell them not to release it.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, I make sure to tell them that a lot. Do you think personally, or is it the position of investigators overall, that the suspect is likely from the area?
That would be speculative. My own personal opinion, probably at least some familiarity with the Delphi area. But that's just me.
Yeah, I think that you have to know the Delphi area to go across that bridge.
Well, that's why I say that. If you haven't walked across the bridge, you don't understand, right?
Yeah, like that bridge is scary.
It is scary. There hasn't been a train on that track since I think 1929.
Yeah.
And those railroad ties are rotted.
Yeah, that bridge scares me. So for somebody to be able to cross it, just like watching that short video, just watching him cross it in that little bit, you're like, he's moving well enough that he has to know the bridge.
He's done that before.
Yes.
That's what I think too.
So that's just me though too. Do you think it's likely that someone knows who the killer is and hasn't come forward?
100% sure of that, in my mind.
Yeah, me too. I think it'd be hard for me to look at that and know that that's my best friend and not say something.
Right. That's why we hope if a person does know and they're living in fear, let us help you.
Yeah,
let us help.
Definitely. Like we can keep you safe. Oh, that's so hard. Has there been a profile of the killer created? If so, is there any information you can share?
I can't.
I was from 39 to 42. All right. Pretty early on in the case, a composite sketch was released of the suspect. How did that sketch come to be created, and what from the video did you draw from to create the sketch?
Remember, a sketch is just a visual. It's not a photograph. It's a visual of what somebody might have seen. So that's all I'll say about the sketch.
In 2019, a new composite sketch of the suspect was created that looks a lot different to many people than the original sketch. How and why was the new sketch created, and why might it appear much different to people?
I can't talk a lot about that in detail, but I'll simply say that the investigation has evolved. And there are things we know we can't explain, and I know that there was a lot of anxiety about that, and even there was some confusion and some blame and some criticism of us. That criticism needs to come to me, not to anybody else, because I absolutely supported that change, and I think there will be enough similarities in this person when we find him that we'll be able to see it in both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely, I just have a feeling that it's somewhere in the middle. So when everything happened in the beginning, I didn't have a face. Like, I have really bad nightmares, and so we didn't have a face. And then, like, I don't know, like a week later, like before the sketch was released, he suddenly had one, and it was not the new sketch, not the old one, but it was somewhere in the middle. And so I always try to figure out what that face is. Like, maybe I do know him, maybe I have met him, and that's the face. Like, I'm giving it with the voice. I just don't know it yet.
Kelsi, you are spot on, and I wish everybody would look at this that way, because the similarities, and let me back up, when people look at that sketch, they think, oh my gosh, that person is 20 years younger than the initial one, and they view it as a photograph. That is not what a sketch is. And it's really, really, really important people look at it like you do, and understand that it's going to be somewhere in the middle, or there'll be some similarities between those with a bookend photo that I know we're going to get one day.
Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to the day I can look in his eyes and tell him how much I don't like him. I'm looking forward to that day.
Yeah, I'll stand with you.
Yeah, I can't wait. Okay, at the conference in which the new sketch was released, there was a specific wording and talk that seemed aimed at someone in particular. Can you verify if it was actually meant for someone, obviously the suspect, but beyond that, like a particular person?
Those were comments made by me, and no, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm assuming they were comments made by me, if that's what you're referencing.
It was, yeah, I think it was the
Being in the
way
room?
you word things.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another thing, I don't know if you can talk about it now, but there's the shack was used in it. Was that on purpose?
It was.
Okay.
Have you seen The Shack?
I have. I watched it twice.
You know what I mean then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think one of the big rumors going on around, I guess, is that they died in the shack, or like there has to be some other meaning other than faith to it, which is something that we're trying to kind of get rid of that rumor.
There was no shack involved. Okay. Oh, but that had a really, the field had a really compelling effect on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that movie in general, the first time I watched it, and it had like zero effect on me. I just kind of sat through it and didn't think about the meaning behind it, just because I just wanted to watch it as a movie. And then the second time I went back and watched it, and I cried the entire movie. And the third time I went back and watched it, I cried even more. And so then I read the book so that I could kind of dive deeper into it. And it actually helped me a lot with forgiveness in myself and being stronger going through it all and being able to help other people. So it's a really good movie.
It's so cool to hear you say that. I had to say it had the same effect on me in a different way, because I'm not, I don't understand what it's like to lose a sister. But that movie had such a profound effect on everything about our life that it was worth mentioning. It was worth mentioning, and if it had no other effect on anybody but you, I'm glad I did.
Yeah, and it didn't even, like, then I was like, holy cow, he watched that movie and it affected him in a really good way. But I remember watching it and like watching the dad the first time and like seeing how he was feeling, and like, oh, that's how my grandparents are feeling right now. Yeah. And then watching it again and watching the siblings kind of go through what they were going through, and I'm like, man, that's what I'm struggling with right now. And
your grandparents are strong people. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think I could be the strong person I am without them. So
how nice is that to say? Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's like life just keeps throwing stuff at us, and we still make it through, and that's just really amazing to me. Like most families, like in forensics right now, we're learning that like the statistics behind everything, and like most of the time families don't stay together at the end of this.
That's right.
And so being together 3 years after is really, really good. And like it's not even in the statistics, so that doesn't happen very often.
It's inspirational. It does not.
Yeah.
And you guys just take it. I mean, it comes to you, and your best way through trouble is right in the middle. And that's what I see you guys doing all the time.
We definitely hold each other together. As soon as we have a thought like, we don't want to be here anymore, we don't want to go through this anymore, we just keep pushing through it, and we push through it together. And I think that's what helps us a lot. And other families, like, you don't see that. And then like, if you just do it this way, but you can't like force that on them. Sometimes I'm just like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So, all right. During this investigation, the murders of Lyric Cook and Elizabeth Collins in Iowa were mentioned as being particularly similar in some ways. Investigators took it seriously enough to look into it and eventually decided the cases were not related. How did you come to that conclusion?
I can't talk about that, but what I can talk about is that we have a way of monitoring what's going on around the country in other similar cases. And that will continue. We'll continue to follow up on those as they occur around the country. And as other communities, but more importantly, as other families are affected in such a horrible way, it doesn't matter where it is on the globe, we're going to go. And we're going to see if there's any similarities with what occurred here.
And you know what scares me more than not knowing who did it and not knowing exactly what happened to my sister is the fact that he's out there somewhere and could do it again.
Yeah.
And I think that's what causes so much anxiety in me. I think that's what keeps me going instead of stopping.
Right.
Is because even if I go my entire life not knowing, I would rather not know than it happen to another family.
Right. Good for you.
So.
Me too. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons that we're never going to tire on this, because we've got to bring it to your family. We've got to bring it to the community, because there's a likelihood that he has either done this before or will do it again. I think most people understand that.
Yeah, definitely. It's very scary knowing that he's out there somewhere. Like, I could be at Kohl's when he comes up to my register, and I would have no idea. I might get a feeling, but I would have no idea.
Remember, this is a little bit different because we have a visual.
Yeah, that's true. If I can see him walking, maybe then I'll be like, "Hey, that's our guy. I'm going to leave right now." This is very long. So there have been a number of suspects and persons of interest, is a real word that I should have used, that you have looked into and publicly admitted that you looked into in many cases. These are people brought forward by tipsters in the public. Did any of these men seem promising, and how much of a letdown was it when you were able to rule them out?
I'll say in this entire investigation, almost 3 years now, that there have been a lot of highs and lows because we're people too. And there's just been lots of highs and lows. I think there will continue to be. But that doesn't mean we slow down or stop just because there are some lows. Like you just said, what do you guys do?
Definitely, we stick together.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think the first main person that we looked at, we were like really hopeful about this person, and we were like, oh man, it could be him. And I think after that person, after we heard that it wasn't him, and like he was ruled out to us, maybe, but maybe not. Not officially, you guys didn't tell us he was ruled out, but like to us he was, because we didn't hear about him again. So we got that, and we were kind of let down. We got less hopeful. Right. And I think after that, we stopped looking at people like that. We stopped saying, oh, that's our guy, because after you get let down the first time, you're like, you don't want to be let down. You don't want to get your hopes up. So after that, we were like, we're not gonna put too much into these people that these people are putting out there. Well,
you know, the other side of this, Kelsi, is we have to remember and realize this was such a high-profile case, as it should have been, and as it still is, frankly, that there's a lot still to this day going on the internet with people communicating and talking in different groups and putting side-by-side comparisons with a coworker or whoever that might be. Eventually they're going to be right, or eventually we're going to be right, or you're going to be right, whatever. But what if we're not right with a person? You know, and that's happened. So there have been people that have had a really hard time continuing to do what they do, and they were nowhere near this area. And that's happened nationally. So while we believe that people are really truly trying to help, that side-by-side comparison does not help.
Definitely. Yeah. And I don't know if you keep up with my Twitter account, but
I have no social media platform by design.
Yes. I think Kim gets on there and Solcom, is that his
Tony?
name? Yeah, he gets on there and he likes my posts sometimes. So I know they're watching me, which is good, because there's some people on there I'm like, they're really creepy. But there's this one guy, his name, he calls himself Dexter. And today I got a notification that he made an account with using my name. And so this guy will post these pictures of one person specifically right now. It was Chase at one point. It was another kid I go to school with. And he'll post them. And he harasses these people all the time. And so it's just those people, like I know these people are innocent. I was with Chase, and like Brandon goes to school with me. Like, he's the nicest kid I've ever met, and Aaron is the nicest kid I've ever met. And so it's really crazy to know these people are like that.
Well, it's easy to say what you want on social media and hide behind a screen, right? Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah, he he came to CrimeCon, and I didn't know this until somebody sent me the picture. He was standing right behind me and took a picture and posted it on one of his pages. Like, he's a very scary man, I think. Yeah. But he can do what he wants. Hopefully, those people aren't affected as much as I think they are, because I would feel terrible if they like got really depressed or really sad and like couldn't handle it just because this guy is doing that because of my sister.
Right.
Are there rumors, theories, or just things that are not true or accurate that you would like to set straight?
Oh, yes, but I can't. Eventually I'll be able to. I want this to remain If all of the discussion and innuendo and rumor and all of those things continue, this continues to draw attention. And I want that to happen. I don't like the roadmap all the time, how the speculation happens that affects you and your family, or affects your community or your school, whatever that might be. But like I've said all along, there have been people that have disagreed with me. We'll go and do almost anything that we can possibly do to keep this in the forefront. So I went to Megan Kelly and Dr. Phil, and we did those things together, and we'll continue to do that. We're not gonna stop. We're just not.
Yeah, and I think people don't understand that. They're always like the police right now. I think there's a really big rumor that the police are covering something up, which is not happening. And I think people could just look at the fact that the law enforcement is going with us to do all these things and realize that that's not what's happening. Like, they're putting so much effort into this. There's no way that they could be covering something up.
I've had those conversations with people before, and I'll keep those are private conversations. I promise you on lives of two people that are most important to me in my lifetime, and that is my daughter and my wife. That's not happening. While I'm here, there will be nothing of the like. And that's just a rumor. And that, today in today's world, it's easy to say something like that, but take a step back and think about what it would mean for that to actually occur. And it's just not.
Yeah, and I think the reason people think it is because there's a couple cases specifically that I'm working on that I post a lot about. But there is a lot of police corruption. And I think there are in other places, but I definitely don't think there is any here. Or at least in our case, maybe there are in other places. How has this case affected you personally?
Oh, gosh. Frankly, Kelsi, I don't know why it's had such a profound effect on me, but it has. And I think it's maybe my age, and maybe it's the time that I've been doing this. Maybe it's all the death and dying that I've seen in my lifetime. It's the sadness that I see in your family, and it's the sadness and response that I saw in the community of Delphi in your county. And then that grew into this bigger thing that was now the whole state. Then it grew into the Midwest. Then it grew nationally, and it even grew internationally. And I feel tremendous pressure to solve it. And that's internal pressure. Not from anybody else, but for all the reasons that we've already talked about. So I have pretty specific prayers I say at night, and they will always be included in those prayers, those girls and you. And I think about them every single morning when I wake up, because it's representative of evil. And I don't believe evil is rampant in our society. I think most people are good, but this represents evil, and the effects of his actions change the trajectory of many, many, many lives. And I take that very personally. That's probably why.
I have had this feeling. It's a very big God thing, I think. So I don't know if you've heard the story of where I was at the time, but I interviewed a searcher for this podcast who was with me. She lost her brother when she was my age at the time. So I was 17, she was 17, and her brother died in a car crash. So she was actually the secretary at the middle school in Delphi. And so I knew her pretty well, but she wasn't like my best friend, wasn't really close with her. And so the day that the girls went missing, she heard about it, like it was going all the way around school. And she was like, okay, I kind of want to be involved, but like I can just do it from home. I'll just like look online, see what I can find. Well, she went to bed. The next morning she woke up and she was watching the news, and she was just keeping updated online. And she was like, I don't want to go out and search. I don't want to be that involved. Well, she said, Kelsi, I don't know what happened, but I felt a really big kick in the butt. Like, I think God was telling me I needed to go get out there and do something. And at that moment, she went out, she got dressed. I think she was just wearing sweatpants and like Crocs or something to go out and like stomp around the woods. And like, she just got up and went. And so her group was actually going in a whole different direction of mine. But I passed her, and she just like suddenly felt like she needed to go with me. And so she ended up being with me, and we crossed the bridge together, and we like searched underneath the bridge, and we were down there on the like driveway, I guess it's under there.
Mm-hmm.
And we were standing there, and that's when somebody yelled something up to me. And the way she was looking around, she saw the whole scene a lot differently than I did. But as soon as I heard the word "shoe," I knew, I knew it was them. Like there were no other bodies there. Like there was no way that it was somebody else. But I remember melting, and just being with her in that moment was really awesome, because like I knew that she'd lost her brother. She'd come and talk to the school. I knew that she was feeling what I was feeling, maybe in a different way, but she'd felt it.
Right.
And so I think there's a really God is all around. There's a reason
she was there with you that day.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, I believe that every ounce of my being.
Yeah.
And you have this connection now that nobody can ever take apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I definitely think even though evil was surrounding the girls in that moment, and he took over at that time, God was still surrounding them, and he was surrounding us, and he was there, and he's still his, and he's gonna make sure this is solved too. So.
Absolutely. Well, the end of the movie, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What happened?
Yeah, he forgave him. I have no idea how he did that. I'm still not there yet. He just
but I'm thinking more of the field.
Mm-hmm.
And off they went.
Yeah. Oh, that was a good movie.
Yeah.
Very good movie. And I think it's had such an effect on me too. I think my faith is stronger because of it. Wow. And so I definitely think he's definitely working.
Oh. He can take it all.
Yeah.
You just gotta give it to him.
Yeah. I definitely hope that, my hope for the killer is that he does go to him. Even though he did kill my sister, I think someday I'll be able to forgive him because of that. And I hope he's able to ask for forgiveness.
I hope so too.
I pray for that a lot too. And I feel like other people don't. My grandma's I don't think I could ever forgive him.
Mm-hmm.
But then I watch the movie and I read the book and I read my Bible and I sit there and I pray and I'm I have to someday. You can't hold on to that forever.
Right.
That's not a feeling you can just hold on to.
It's not healthy, is it?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Everybody deals with grief differently.
Yeah. So I watched.
Good for you. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, I watched the way that my grandma does it, and she's strong. She gets through it, but that's who she shows on the outside. And then she said this in an interview the other day, and I just sat there and I cried so hard. So when she got diagnosed with cancer, she said, I have a win-win situation. I could live through this and stay with my family, or I could die and go be with Libby. And I was oh my gosh, I would be so sad that you can feel that.
Oh my gosh.
But
kind of beautiful all at the same time.
Yeah, it's such a bittersweet feeling.
Yeah.
She knows that that's where she's going. She'll be with Libby, but then the rest of us are here, and you won't be with us anymore.
Right.
But yeah, that was, I don't know.
Wow. Yeah. I wish I had that outlook on life.
I know.
Yeah, I need to work at that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I know that's where I'm going. I know I'll be with my sister, but I don't want to die right now. And if I had cancer, that is not what I would be thinking. Yeah. I would be I have to be cured.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Me too.
Yeah, me too. She's just it's okay. No matter what happens, I have a situation where I'm either going to be really happy here with you guys and we're going to solve this case together, or I die and I go be with Libby and I get to know everything. Yeah. Libby will tell me and I'll be everything will be here now. Yeah, but then you get to know everything and I get to be down here and just...
We're sad for those that remain, right? But we're all headed that way, and we're all, if we believe, we'll experience His promise.
Exactly.
That eternal life, and that's so important.
Yeah, and I think, we don't go to church regularly, but, I feel we believe strong enough that it's where we're going.
I think you do. I think you do, yeah.
And my grandma, she has, such an amazing faith. I love her.
Cool.
All right, last question. If the person that murdered Libby and Abbey can hear your voice, what would you want to say to him?
Call me. Call me. I think the person has a bit of a conscience left. You can meet him anywhere. And I would be very respectful. That's what I'd say.
Awesome. Those questions. I think I haven't ever really thought about what I would say to him. I've thought about it, but I have about 10 million things I would say to him. I just have Like, I should just write him a book so that when he goes to prison, he can read it.
That's right. That'd be a good idea.
Yeah, and then that can be what he does for the rest of his life, is read that book.
That would be a good idea.